Hey guys, this is Miko. I wanted to go over how to get from 200 to 250 for everything related to crafting, refining, and gathering. I'm not going to be going over casual categories like riding, fishing, and music, but everything else, there is like an easy way to get to max level without having to spend a ton of gold. And then from there, you can make money like early on of the expansion because you can craft the things that are going to be gated behind doors for most other players, so you can get a little bit of that extra profit early on. The strategy for this is you need a maximum of 10 million XP based off the fact that going from 150 to 200 trade skill was 2.5 million, and everyone before that was 4 times less. So this one we assumed to be 4 times more. It could be up to 10 million. I'm hoping it's not that much, and it's like really like maybe 5 million or something like that, but it could be up to 10 million, so that's what you kind of have to prepare for XP wise. The main idea here is to craft low cost items that give amount of a good XP per craft, and then items that could be sold for a profit are preferred but aren't mandatory. And then if you do craft early, don't open any of those boxes because they will likely be scaled up for the new expansion, because those levels from the actual going over level cap will be retained once you get up to that new max, which means those boxes will be retained in terms of their value because it's going to be the same kind of box when you get up to that new max. So those materials themselves will likely be scaled to be the newer materials if there's any that are added. So it's just like a good way to get ahead on day one. So starting off here with the crafting category, we have weaponsmithing. Weaponsmithing, there are things that give good XP but are useless. A lot of the crafting category falls into this, where there's a lot of stuff that you can craft, but it's not going to be super profitable. But once you get to that max level, then you can start making a lot of money. For weaponsmithing in particular, you have master armor research notes. These are, or that's for armor smithing, but there's like master weapon research notes. Both of these are just effective, but for weaponsmithing, like, you can craft these early and then you could salvage them later, it seems like, and then from there you can get a good amount of XP. So that's something that you could stockpile right now. They talked about how they're going to put a time gating mechanism on this, I believe, or at least on some of these kind of research related activities. They're supposed to be time gated again, but we don't really know when that's going to be added. You could also craft patterns. These are higher XP, but per craft, the gear will be useless, but they're also very cheap because patterns require less resources. Like, you don't have to get those iron guardsmen for the patterns experience or some of the more recent events. So you can buy those for basically null because the gear effectively is useless right now. So it's selling for, the patterns themselves are selling for very, very cheap. It's buying up pickups, but that's kind of whatever. You just salvage the gear once you craft, and you're just kind of good to go. And then lastly, you can go for artisan's gear. This is a newer thing that's been added, but it's like a level 200 craft. It doesn't require as many resources as like a normal craft, but it will reward you with shards when you disenchant them. I don't believe that will be super useful next expansion because they don't appear to have a use right now, but if those get converted to gold per se, then you're getting 200 gold per craft if they convert 1-to-1, or you're getting 200 shards per like mass craft, which is something that people did on the New World League to get ahead with in terms of getting shards at the time. Like, that was kind of a weird mechanism that worked, but that's one way to get ahead there as well. And then if you want to profit from weaponsmithing, the main thing you can go for here is runeglass. It's a profitable, it gives a good amount of experience. That will be high in demand when the expansion actually comes out, and it will be used in every single build. So it's just like a good thing to go for. Just make sure you're crafting the damage over time related runeglass, because that's the one that is currently in the meta and likely will stay in the meta unless there's a change to how that gives ult charge, because right now it basically gives you double the ult charge that you normally would get with your normal weapon. So it's just like very easy to slot in every single weapon, and people typically don't use runeglass in armor right now, so I don't think that's like completely worth going for, but you could go for that if you feel a little bit risky. Moving on to armor smithing, kind of a similar thing. You could go for those master armor research notes. Again, this could be time gated. Patterns are good. Artisan's gear is good. You, in theory, could go for void bent, but I just would not, though. But that's like something that you could technically do if you want to have a fun time getting up to 250. And then if you don't have Asmo for armor smithing, the last tip is that you could use Cinnabar or Tolvium, because gear score doesn't matter. You just want to get the XP. And then if you want to make some profit with this, just go for oak flesh. I don't think it's going to be super profitable, but because I think a decent amount of people will be trying to do that, but you could go that route if you want to try to make some profit while doing so, or lose less money at the minimum. Moving on to jewel crafting. You could do the Master Jewel Crafting Research Notes. You could hear a similar theme here for the crafting. They all have kind of similar themes that could be time gated again. And then I would not go for the Asmodeum bands as much. You can craft them, and you kind of need to craft them for this next method, but the main thing to boost your jewel crafting is actually to craft things that could be used, and the main thing there that I think is good is just the Artisan's gear. Looks like it's like lower resource compared to other jewel crafting because you don't need the actual mods per se. I guess you could roll gear without mods anyway, so that's not like that big of a deal, but you generally get more per craft if you do Artisan's gear than if you do normal crafting. You could also try to do gemstone dust for some profit, but gemstone dust is generally not super used right now, so I would tend to avoid that. But if your market looks like you can make profit off of that and you find cheap gems that you can turn into dust, then that is a way that you could go forward. Moving on to Arcana. In terms of like what's good XP but not very useful for Arcana, you could go for the Master Arcane Research Notes, similar theme there. You could go for Patterns, you could go for Artisans. All these are like good XP, but they're not going to be super useful once the actual event goes live, or the new expansion goes live. And then if you want to make some profit, Arcana has a lot of room for making profit. You could do moat crafting. This isn't like a lot of XP, but it's like a very easy way to make profit. You can do the whole infused region pot thing, where you go infused alcohest into infused region pots. That's the main one I'm probably going to be doing. That's just pretty consistent profit, and you gain a lot of levels from it. The profit itself typically comes from the boxes with this method, so it's not going to be like a huge amount of profit, but it's like you won't lose a ton. Region pots will probably be high in demand. You'll probably be able to sell those for like a decent price, even if a lot of people are making them. You could also do infused fire absorption pots because these are in the meta for PvP in both OPR, 3v3, 1v1 people don't really use consumes, and in war they're meta. Infused arcane absorption pots are meta in war. Those are also a good craft. You could craft coatings for the mutation weeks and the ward potions. Those aren't the bads. And then lastly, they are going to be adding that Bane as an actual pot, and it will likely be an Arcana related thing, so that's something that you could add. So if you have your Gen Week, you do your Angry Earth Bane potion, like that's probably what you're going to have to pop before you go into that. Or maybe it will be a coating like Time Will Tell, but wherever that lies, that's going to be a good thing to craft and will be used for all those mutations. Moving on to cooking. Cooking is kind of straightforward. You just craft a bunch of hearty meals or energizing hearty meals, and that's about it. You could do attribute food early on, but I think there's going to be newer attribute food, so I wouldn't lean into it heavily. If you want to make profit, like guaranteed, do trade skill food, except that's going to be increased into like a 700 gear score trade, right? And we don't know how they're going to do that, so there might be new trade skill food. So I'd be like a little bit wary about that and kind of wait for newer information. But at the minimum, just do party meals and energizing hearty meals. Just eat the loss for making them, but it's like the easiest way to do it. So yeah, that's what I would do personally. For furnishing, there's a lot of like patterns related to furnishing that you can discover that can be like secretly very good. I have one here that could be useful. It's called a round seafoam rug. This is like generally very low resource and very high XP, like for the ratio between the two. It doesn't require a lot, and it should be on the screen right now, so that's something I would go for. You could also go for stain. I think that's the meta one that most people go for. And then if you want some profit, you could try instruments, because some of the newer players might not have an instrument, and there's no instrument related event right now, so maybe they'll be like, hey, I'll go buy a Bits instrument because I haven't been playing New World in a while. So that's something that you could try to swing some profit for. I wouldn't say it's super likely to work, but you could try that. Incense is okay as well, but not super useful right now. It's okay though, like you could make a little bit of profit off of that. And then moving on to refining here. The refining, I'm kind of lumping everything here in one category because there's not a lot to it. You just need to refine things to get it up. For whatever method of refining that you're doing, you need to craft the T5 level resource, so that would be the orichalcum ingots. You could try star metal, but it'll be a little less XP. You could do the ironwood planks. For hides, you got the infused hide. You have cloth that you just need to do that T5 level 1. And then for stone cutting, it's a little bit different, which I'll get into in a second. We don't know if those 200 level mats will be time gated or not still. We're kind of waiting for information on that because it's going to be a 250 level mat. If they're not time gated, that could be something that you craft as well. but we don't really know that for now, so I would just try to stock on the stuff that could be used to craft the T5. If it's not time gated, then you could just turn that into that next level of craft, but if they are time gated, then you don't really lose anything there. And then for stone cutting itself, you can make a little bit of profit off of this. You could do opals, like dot runeglass opals. That's like a very easy way to make profit. Both of those, the pristine cut opals are just meta for all the time in New World. Onyx is typically used a lot in armor as well because people don't like to think about having like half stats. Like you can technically just go for malachite and diamond, but it's just like a little bit weird to think about. So people typically don't even try to buy those, and they just go for the onyx and opal. So both of those tend to be pretty profitable. And then charged sand is something there that's like kind of underrated, but could be decent. And then for smelting, sulfur is decent. Like both charged sand and sulfur are used for rune glass, so they should be somewhat profitable. And they give a decent amount of experience because they're added in brimstone, so they're like level 150-ish. So they're not bad profit for the amount of refining that you do. Moving on to gathering, I have a little bit of a trick here where you could actually go to OPR and you can gather in OPR. You can't harvest in OPR, but you could log, you can mine and trap, and you can do tracking and skinning. And for those, you actually gain a decent amount of experience. I've been actually leveling up those in OPR by just PvEing. I don't know if it's as efficient as like open world, but it's something that you could do if all those open world spots are kind of occupied and you can't use those. You could just go to OPR and then you can try to skin wolves, or you could chop down trees there. You could go mine the star metal in OPR, and that's like a way to kind of increase that. So that's like a sneaky way to do it. And then lastly, there's this Grand Mastery caches that you can get from the faction vendor, which are relatively cheap. Those may be time gated as well, but that's a way to gain a good amount of experience for all those categories. And let me know if you guys have anything kind of more secret that you want to share. If you don't have stuff that you want to share, that I get that too. And I'll see you guys in the next video.